Good morning, good day, good evening, wherever you are. I hope you're having a wonderful time. You can call me Dragon, and today we'll be going back into Factorio. And, well, I've been working on a few things. Let's just put it that way. The moving day of the factory is pretty much underway, and it's a right mess. Let's just put it that way. I've slowly started building some of the factories anew for some of the more basic things like belts, inserters, that kind of stuff, and sort of trying to figure out where everything needs to go. So far, it's been going pretty well. I am at a point now where I think I can actually get rid of some of the old stuff. Like, I've already started tearing down a bunch of things in the factory, the old one that is. Most notably a lot of the old Steam stuff, but I'll still have to go back and like do a bunch more before everything is back to how it functionally wise was anyway, even though the layout was a complete mess. But yeah, I am loading up Factorio. It's just being, you know, mods and stuff. And on a side note, Peak might show up at some random point later today. I don't know when he's off work, but he was actually sleeping over yesterday along with a friend of ours. So none of them are here right now, and I think our common friend has maybe already gone home, like, entirely, simply because there's like no trace of his stuff here at least. But we'll see how that goes. At any rate, I'm kind of just wanting to like chill out this weekend. If Factorio becomes a little bit too much, I might switch over into some Fallout New Vegas with the Tale of Two Wastelands stuff. But we'll see. We'll see. It all depends on my mood today. Right now, though, I just really want to get back into Factorio because I'm really digging it. Last time when I played this whole island setup that we've got going right now, it was kind of... I lost interest, let's just put it that way, somewhere very early, actually. And that was even without Industrial Revolution changing the whole early game. Back then, I basically had an island just like I do now, but it was about like a quarter of the size. And I had it completely surrounded by turrets and like everything going and ready to build ships and stuff. But I don't know, I just kind of lost interest, I guess. But this time around, it just seems like so much more to do. So, and why is it not showing up? There we go. But yeah, this time around, there's like so much more to do. So, until now at least, it's been pretty exciting for me. I did do a little bit of grocery shopping before the stream as well. Had to go and get some breakfast and stuff. But let me just show you where we're currently at. Actually, let's zoom completely out. So one thing you'll notice is that the pollution has completely retracted in some places, almost to the inside of the base, which definitely helps out. It means that the biters are only really attacking from some of these camps up here now. And a lot of this stuff down here has been marked for destruction. Oh, hey, Ek. Welcome back. Nice looking base so far. Thanks. Yeah, it's a work in progress. Like, I've started pulling down the old parts of the base, and it's going okay. These are the new factories that I set up yesterday, and I've sort of tried to make a, a makeshift logistics active provider chest-like system, but using passive chests in these warehouses. So basically all the bots will throw stuff into these storage chests. It gets sucked out and put into like some sorted storage chests for the most common things. Only problem is that once that main storage house like fills up, it's completely fucked. I do have at some point what you're talking about. Let me see here. What's it called again? So I can research larger logistic containers, which give me actual logistic warehouses. And they're like storage and passive provider. I don't know, can you even get like active ones? I don't know. But yeah, I haven't done the research yet. So I don't even have regular all the regular provider tests and all that, because it requires like some Industrial Revolution and what do you call it, Krastorio requires you to make these revolutionary circuits, the blue ones, before you can do that. I don't remember if this is like the equivalent of the blue ones from the regular game though. Yeah, and especially even more so in my case, because I've been wanting to move that whole base that took up this entire space. So you haven't been here seen this yet, but yesterday I showed off this new smelting or ore washing plant. So this is for like gold, tin, copper, and iron, where it gets washed just using water at the moment and then smelted and all that stuff. And then I've built in these train stations so far. No trains are running, but I am trying to like plan out things, especially where the rails need to go and figuring out intersections and such. So it's very exciting. But all this new stuff over here is pretty final so far as I can tell. So I've got like, you know, my red belts, underground belts and all that stuff running again now, though a little bit more efficient than last time. Yeah, it's looking way more organized now too, especially with the roads and everything. So, and having built this whole biofarm as the first thing was probably the best thing that I could have done, because all this while my power generation has basically run off of what do you call it? It's not coal coke, is it in this case? I can't remember, because it's bioindustry stuff, but it's like a mix of, yeah, it's a mix of coal coke, or coke from Industrial Revolution, I believe. Yep. And these coke pellets from I think that is bioindustries. Yes. And these pellets are fucking amazing, by the way. The new world record in default settings multiplayer the other day. Got sub 1 hour 30 minutes. That was pretty good. Wow. Yeah, I've seen like a speedrun a couple years ago, and that was actually not even default settings. That was like high ore density and stuff, and that was still 2 hours, so 1.5 hours? That's fucking insane, dude. Amazing. But how does that even like, that must be like such a hard category to stream in, like this game though, because you have to like, there's like so many random factors that you can't account for. Checking out DSMP, 8 people working together to beat as quickly as possible. Okay. Well, I usually don't watch speedruns that much. I'm interested, like, I like the topic. I think it's a really cool idea. Sometimes speedrunning can get a little bit much and go beyond the bounds of where I'm like, okay, maybe maybe you guys have gone too far now. But it's still pretty cool though to see what people sort of figure out. Like that's where my interest lies. Games where there's like, oh, a new glitch has been found and that kind of stuff, you know? For Factorio though, it's a bit more wibbly wobbly because it's like based on random world gen and stuff. You know, it's not like, oh, Super Mario, there's always the same things that you do, so everyone's on the same terms, you know? Whereas with games like Minecraft and Factorio and such, it's heavily dependent on the seed that you get too. And I guess there's some interest in like the seed hunting part of it, but I don't know. It's not quite my preferred category. Got a whole base plan out. Some people build some things, some build mining, some manage spiders, etc. Right, but because there are 8 players, then that would have to be in different category than the like a one-man speedrun though, right? Because obviously that, you know, you can't compete against 8 people simultaneously. Not only would that be unfair, but also like, why? Yeah, so that's like, that's one part of speedrunning where in some cases it goes a little bit too far in my opinion, you know? Like, they just start making way too many categories in my own preference. Yeah, regular default settings is 2 hours and 30 minutes. That's still pretty impressive though. Again, the one that I saw like years ago was about 2 something hours, and he had like, you know, high density ores and like frequency of ores, no enemies, all the preferable stuff happening, and he still only managed to do it in 2 hours. But it's also like, you know, there's so many factors involved in Factorio, because like, are there separate speedrunning categories for with and without blueprints, for instance? Like, are you allowed to take in blueprints from other saves? That kind of stuff. Any percent is 125. But then any percent, does that like, you know, also include blueprints and stuff? I assume it would. Not knowing much about it. Yeah, any map settings. But yeah, nah, I don't really watch speedruns. Occasionally I'll watch a, oh, we just discovered this new speedrunning feature that, or bug or whatever, that we can use for like drastically cutting down speedruns of a specific game, but I don't like actually watch the speedruns themselves. But what are you up to, Ek? I can't remember. Were you also the one playing? Because it's been a while, and I've been like, I don't know. My memory doesn't really serve me quite well these days because I'm like focusing on all these other things. But were you also playing Industrial Revolution? Were you the one who had like just built a ore washing plant? Someone mentioned that like a couple days ago, and I can't remember who it was. It's not someone from my regular audience too, so. Oh, you completed it a while back. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I seem to remember. Then that must have been, yeah. Obviously that would have been you, but I do seem to recall someone mentioning that too, yeah. And allowed in most categories. 100% does allow it, but it's already like 5.5 hours long, so no one would run it without it. What does what does 100%ing Factorio mean? All achievements. Okay, yeah, I was just about to ask. Wait, so that means they also have to research, I guess when you're speedrunning you automatically get those, but I guess you know, if you don't even get the win the game within X amount of hours and research trains within a certain amount of hours, it makes it a little bit difficult to be 100%. So they have to produce 20 million green circuits, for instance, yeah. That also seems like something where you really need to, there's like so much you can do in that category to cut down on time though. I would imagine, for sure. Because, you know, not only is there like efficient factory layouts and all that stuff, but there's also order of things, like when do you acquire certain resources? When do you establish certain mining outposts? Which seed do you use is like the biggest factor here. And it affects all those things, right? So the last 2 to 3 hours are just building outposts for iron and copper to make more circuits. Oh yeah, it's true, and you're not allowed to handcraft more than 111 items. Yeah, that is that actually makes that category a little bit insane, because that changes the way that you play it so much. Until they launch the rocket, luckily. That's true. Once you get the... Yeah, that's true. But at that point, would you have any, I guess in a speedrun maybe not, but would you really even need to handcraft anything at that point? Wouldn't you already have like a factory for everything anyway in order to get to that stage? I think the biggest feat here is just like, you know, staying focused for 5.5 hours. Neprums is working on doing a new 100% base, but it's still a work in progress. But it's interesting to follow his attempts at running it. Yeah, because it's like when I watched the speedrun thing, he was like building factories and then, you know, using Control C and Control V to like quickly build massive setups very early on. It's been a while though, but I assume he was like rushing the roboports and all that stuff too. Because obviously doing all that without logistics and construction robots isn't really a thing, so... But yeah, sometimes it's also like... I'm a little bit on the fence in some regards, because for some speedruns, it's also a little bit sad that, oh, someone spent like, you know, hours trying to perfect a certain speedrunning category with some specific rules that apply, but then someone figures out like, oh, you can actually do this one thing that wasn't specified in the original rules, meaning that it's technically, you know, a legit run, or assuming that it gets recognized as such. And then all of a sudden these other people's speedruns are just like completely forfeited simply because someone else found like a new thing they could exploit. I'm a little bit on the fence on those. So many robots in 100%. That's true. If they might make a new one. Yeah. Yeah. I've been watching a lot of videos on like more old school games like the Wind Waker is one of them, but like, yeah, old Zelda games, for instance. There's some pretty interesting stuff there where people found like, oh, if we do it this particular one way, we can like, you know, remove basically several minutes worth of playtime required. To the point where if you compare one of the first speedruns in that category to the newer ones, we're talking about like an hour to 2 hours saved or something. Simply because there's like segments of a game which normally just take a ton of time, but because people figure out, oh, you can like completely skip these parts of the game, you know, and then you don't have to do them anymore, and it's literally hours worth of time saved. It is curious though, like, that people can figure out all these things and that it's even possible, but still. Once a speedrunning category of any percent becomes like, oh, now the speedrun is like 10 minutes or something, then I don't know. Like for Wind Waker, one of the things that I found was interesting in its own right was the reason why runs, you know, speedrunning runs would die. People would give up on them. And for Wind Waker, it's the Sploosh Kaboom minigame, right? In case you don't know what that is, it's basically... you're familiar with the board game Battleships, right? Each player has like, normally at least, put down like X amount of hidden ships, and then each take turns like hitting like an empty square, saying like, oh, I hit this square, and then the other opponent says like, oh, you hit my ship or you don't. And Sploosh Kaboom is like a, you know, you playing against the shopkeeper version of that, where it's heavily based on RNG to a certain extent. And in most cases, this single part of the game could basically kill the entire run. And the most problematic part about it is that it happens, like, you don't get access to this minigame until several hours into the run already, so some speedrunners will like straight up not run categories if there's like some heavily RNG based factor somewhere like several hours in, you know? Because playing several hours and having to start over is not fun. You know, is what most people would say anyway. But someone found out that you could actually model the random behavior of Sploosh Kaboom using statistics, and now there actually is like a out of game third party app that you can open up, which allows you to put in your random guesses for Sploosh Kaboom and almost like have a chance of winning it first try every go, because it basically says like, okay, you hit this tile and there's like a certain probability of you hitting those tiles, or hitting a ship on those tiles. Let's see if I can actually find it, because it's actually kind of cool. I don't remember what it's called. Peak and I, we actually tried it out when he was playing the Wind Waker a little over a year ago. He was doing it for the first time. Yeah, exactly. So here it is. Let's just see. Oh no, that was the wrong. There we go. So this is what it looks like, right? So you've got the grid, and essentially the probability of hitting something closer to the middle is higher than in the edge. So if you click on one of those, it changes the probability of all those tiles. So you basically just go by the highest percentage, you know? And it is like a grid-based pattern up to a certain point. Like there's like repeating patterns here. And it highlights exactly which ones you should go, you know? And I can't remember how it works again, because you can also tell it like, oh, I hit something here. How do you do that again? Yeah, so if you click the same one twice, like this, say, oh, I hit something here finally, then, you know, there's a higher probability of it being down than up, for instance. Yeah, exactly. And then it's like, okay, now that would be the largest ship, right? And you could have them like in a line like this and such. So like there's no reason, for instance, to hit down here because and you have a limited amount of shots too, so you need to do it within a certain like limit too. But yeah, I don't remember all the different ships and such. Obviously you'd basically be pulling this up while playing the game and then doing it really quickly. And someone, like when I was watching this video, the person who used this app, you can do it really quickly too, and it was basically like instantly completed and done. And there was a little bit of debate in the speedrunning community, like, is this tool allowed and such for the main category? And if I remember correctly, the consensus was actually that they allowed it for the main, you know, the main category runs, simply because it reduces the amount of like dead runs significantly just because of this, making the whole speedrunning category more interesting to people to speedrun, you know? I think that's very important. Check out Nifrim's highlight of the multiplayer default settings. Enjoy watching the communication and planning come together. I think that's probably got to be like the most difficult part of a speedrun category that depends on multiplayer like that. You know? It's not just your own capabilities anymore. And I can also see why that would make it even more interesting. For sure. But yeah, thanks for that recommendation, I guess. But knowing me, I'll probably be spending all my time trying to fix my factory. It's gonna take a while. For sure. What was that other game that I saw? Oh yeah, well, I think it was like Breath of the Wild. There's like a speedrunning category for Breath of the Wild where the goal is to pull out the Master Sword as quickly as possible, which presents a couple of very interesting speedrunning challenges, or used to at least. So for one, you needed a certain amount of hearts in order to actually pull it out like legit, which means that in the beginning, those speedrunning categories required players to first acquire the necessary amount of hearts before they could actually pull out the sword, which in a normal way of obtaining these takes literally several hours, you know? So even the quickest speedruns was multiple hours long, and there were parts along the way that could also kill the speedrun too if you made too many mistakes or like grave mistakes in a few areas. Again, like making the category less enjoyable because it's a lot of time investment. But then people found out like, oh, okay, you can actually do like some fancy like save stuff related things so that the game thinks you have more hearts than you do or something, which was like allowed, I believe it was. But then even later they actually managed to cut down the whole time required significantly because they found out that you could warp to the forest where the sword is located or something in like a non-intended way, and because of that it wouldn't have loaded in all the assets completely yet at that stage, which means that when you load it in, basically you could basically just pull out the master sword without going through the whole hearts ordeal, simply because it loads in as like an ordinary weapon at first, and then it gets changed into like the version in the pedestal. But as long as it's in that initial version, you can just literally pick up the sword and voila, you have it. Without the hearts trial, which is really interesting that that's even a thing. And because you would warp there incorrectly, all the trees and rocks and such hadn't loaded in yet, so you had like a little bit of time to get up to this sword and then pull it out before it would be loaded in properly, is basically how it worked. The actual technical details on this are a little bit, you know, more advanced than for me to explain here, but that is as far as I remember the general gist of it anyway. Also, like, an interesting progression of a speedrunning category, simply because it cuts it down from like how many hours to like literally minutes. And most importantly, it changed the whole nature of the run. I think one of the earlier versions of that run, you basically get like a horse or something, and you do like a random, like a weird ass trick on it. And then you'd basically teleport while mounting the horse or something, and then you would get into like the forest, and you know, because of you being on the horse or something, it would treat it not as like a regular teleport without like, I think it was like skipping the loading screen or something maybe. And originally people were like, oh, you need a horse for this, but then they found out that you could also do it with like other mounts in the game. So there are places where you can like mount an elk and such. So if you manage to do that, which might be easier, I can't remember if it was because they were closer, but there was definitely an even faster way to do it that way anyway. The only problem that they encountered was that when you would wrong warp or whatever to, I don't even know what the warp name had, but it was basically like a wonky teleport, right? The main issue was that sometimes you would load in, but you would be standing where a tree was supposed to be. So if you were unfortunate, RNG would make it so that you would stand inside of that tree, making you unable to move basically and be stuck. Oh shit, I don't want to do that. But yeah, speedruns are fucking weird, man. But what's on your plate today, Ek? Got any plans for the weekend? Because of course I'm playing this, as goes without saying. Though I don't know if I'll be switching into some Fallout New Vegas later, but because I was playing this all day yesterday too, and I don't want to get burned out, but we'll see. Just playing some Factorio as well, working on Nullius. Nullius, is that a different planet? Are you doing space exploration? Because I can't remember if you told me this. It's a big mod. Nullius. So that's just what it's called then. Okay. Oh, hey, Cellfire. Good evening. Just talking about some speedruns here, and Excess, they're playing something called Nullius. It's focused on, like, chemistry. The idea is you're colonizing an empty planet, and you're probably working towards adding... Oh, and you think you're working towards adding biters and stuff. Wait, so you're the... What? So you're gonna be adding biters to the world? Wait, I'll have to look this up. Whoa, there's a lot of text. Oh, I see what you mean. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, I saw that, like the very first few words in this Factorio prequel. You play an android sent to terraform barren planets and seed them with life. Eons later, your efforts will result in a galaxy full of planets ready for engineers to crash land on. That seems like a weird premise. You're doing all this work just so that random engineers can crash land on them. Like, crash land? Not colonize? Okay. Whatever. This is a full overhaul mod that replaces all recipes and technologies. No life means no coal, oil, wood, biters, or free oxygen in the atmosphere. Okay. Since many planets are poor in rare, heavier materials like copper or uranium, your technology will focus on the most abundant, lighter materials. Wow. Yeah, this is Nullius. This is an overhaul mod for Factorio. Sure. I can give you guys. I just googled Nullius. Also, I'm like filling up with stuff. Need to get up into the logistics network. Diddle, diddle.